It's 1 week till Mother's Day, so here's 3 quick and easy but absolutely adorable crafts that you can make to give to your mum or mother figure in your life to make their day extra special. Whether they're a bookworm, a keen gardener, or just deserve the perfect handmade gift to show them how much you care. So let's jump straight in with making a completely customisable and personalised embroidered bookmark.
This is going to be a corner bookmark. So start by measuring out a square that will fit nicely onto the corner of a book. I made mine 3 by 3 inches. I made a template from paper first to make sure it was the perfect size, then picked out a felt in this gorgeous maroon colour. Cut out your square in the felt, then fold your template in half to create a triangle, and cut this out in felt. Next up is the embroidery. You're going to be embroidering onto the triangle shape, so put the square of felt to the side for the moment. Now this you can do in any design in any colours, but I'll talk you through what I did to give you some ideas. I picked out a few colours of embroidery thread, then using a needle and 1 strand of thread, I started my design with this big T, which is my mum's first initial. I made this faux cross stitch pattern by making small crosses in the shape of a T. I'm going for a floral pattern, so using a soft green, I used a back stitch to create some stems. To create some leaves on the stems, pull your needle up through the felt and insert it back to the same point. Pull gently until you have a small loop. Pull your thread up and out at the top of where you want your loop to be. Make sure your needle threads under the loop and then insert it back into the felt to catch the top of the loop. You don't want to pull too tightly so the loop keeps its shape. Now to add the flowers. This first flower, the easiest way to achieve this is just to add little dots of thread all around in a rough ball shape. Another technique is to add French knots. These can be a little tricky for a beginner, but with practice they can look really nice. Holding your needle in your dominant hand, use your other hand to pull the thread nice and tight. Wrap the thread twice around the needle, wrapping under, then over, keeping the thread taut. Keep holding onto the thread and push the needle back into the felt, a tiny bit away from where the thread started. Keep holding onto that thread and pull the needle all the way through, capturing the knot. Repeat these to create a dandelion type shaped flower. The next flower I use simple straight stitches to create a tulip type shape, keeping the stitches close together to give the full look. The last flower is a rose. Start by making a 5-sided star in straight stitches. Now weave your thread between the star stems, under and over, round and around, and you'll start to see your rose taking shape. To fill the rest of the triangle, I added little flower shapes using the same loop technique we used for the leaves. Now to put the bookmark together. The felt seemed a little flimsy for a bookmark, so I decided to add some fabric to give it some rigidity. So picking out this fabric that matches all the colours of the embroidery, I cut out a square just smaller than the felt. To add even more rigidity, I added some iron-on interfacing to the back of the fabric too. Using small running stitches, I stitched the fabric onto the felt square. Remember, you will be able to see the back of the felt, so make sure you keep this neat. Now using 2 strands of thread, attach the triangle onto the square using a blanket stitch. Tie a knot at the end of the thread and hide this sandwiched between the felt. Bring the thread from the back to the front twice to start the stitch. Now blanket stitch along both edges of the triangle. Thread from front to back through both felt pieces, inserting your needle under the thread so it loops over the top for the next stitch. And the most perfect personalised bookmark is complete. Decorate this however you like, adding special touches for your loved one to give that extra personalised touch. Next up is the perfect gift for the green-fingered mum, or the home cook. These are handmade plant markers. I'm making these for little herb pots, but you can make these for veg patches, flower pots, whatever plant needs marking. These are made from air dry clay, so the first step is to roll and cut out the markers. To make sure they're all the same size and thickness, I grabbed a few pieces of board to make the same thickness I wanted the markers to be. You could use wood, books, cardboard, anything you can get your hands on in the thickness you want. So now, taking a rolling pin, using your boards as guides, roll out your clay. I made a marker template from paper, just a rectangle with a triangle cut out at one end. Using a craft knife, cut out the shape. Use a little bit of water, smooth out the edges. I also smoothed out the corners to give a slightly rounded shape. Repeat this for as many markers as you want. I made 5 in total. Before the clay dries, time to add the labels. For this I used these letter stamps that I got online. I use a similar tool for cake decorating, but make sure to not mix them up. Spell out the herb and stamp it into the marker, not pushing too hard, but hard enough to fully stamp in the label. I made one for oregano, one for mint, basil, parsley and thyme. Once everything is stamped out and in the shape you want, leave the clay to fully dry. The next day, time to paint. I used a white acrylic paint to fully coat the markers, to act as a primer and a base layer. Check your clay to see what sort of primer you may need though. Once this base coat was dry, time to paint on the details. I'm keeping these simple by just adding pops of colour. Mixing up pastel colours, I filled in the inside of the stamped letters. I tried to do this as cleanly as possible, but I'm going to fix this up later. So it's better to make sure the colour gets into all the corners and edges, and we can fix the overpaint if we need. I then painted the edges of the markers in the same colour as the letters. I repeated this to all 5 markers, using pastel rainbow colours to make them look like a set. After the colour layers were dry, I went back with the white to clean up any mistakes and edges. Again, after leaving these to dry, I added a varnish gloss coat all over the markers to give them a hard shell surface that will keep them long lasting and waterproof. Let the varnish dry completely, then they're all done. I tied them together with a cute little ribbon to make the perfect gift. Last craft of this video is to make a perfect tote bag to take mum on a well-deserved shopping trip. I picked up this extra large canvas tote bag from Hobbycraft, but this would be the perfect upcycling hack for any tote bags you've got lying around. This is another craft you can personalise to say whatever you'd like, but I'm just sticking with mum. So I measured the space available on the tote, then found a font online that I liked. I would recommend a bold sans serif font with minimal curves to make this easier to sew later on. Scaling it to a good size, printing and cutting this out to give me a template. I gave my tote bag a quick iron so I had a smooth surface to work with. Using a heat erasable marker, draw out the letters onto the bag. Now pick out a fabric, or fabrics, and cut a piece of fabric a few inches bigger than the word on your bag. Pin this fabric to the inside of the tote. This might look tricky, but feel around to make sure you're pinning it into the right place. Use lots of pins so it's not going anywhere. Now take it to your sewing machine. You could hand sew this, but it would take quite a while, and I wanted to make sure this looked as neat as possible. I used a maroon thread to complement the fabric and stand out nicely on the cream of the tote. Sew all the lines of the letters, keeping straight lines straight, and when reaching corners, keep your needle down, lift the footer and turn the bag. Then carry on sewing to make a nice sharp corner. For any curved edges, go nice and slowly, constantly turning the tote bag to give as clean of a curve as you can. You can now remove all the pins and iron off the heat erasable pen. Now for the big reveal. Carefully separate the tote bag fabric and the colourful fabric between your fingers, inside one of the letters. Cut a small snip just in the tote bag fabric. Be careful not to cut the other fabric. Now cut out the full inside of the letter shape, leaving only a few millimeters of border around the sewn lines. Again, be careful not to cut any of the thread, only cutting the tote bag. Do this for all of your letters and your adorable word reveal tote bag is complete. And there you go, 3 very easy but adorable handmade Mother's Day gift ideas. These can be the perfect last minute addition to make sure every mum is spoilt rotten this Mother's Day. Let me know your favourite handmade gifts to make in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to see more crafts like these, and we are very nearly ready for our home renovations to begin in full force. So you don't want to miss any of those videos either. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.